Number 10. FNAF 6 cancelled. This one may have been less of a troll and more of like an actual post. I'm not even sure. That's how good this troll is. But Scott, it's hard to tell. The actual update to this Steam community post had him claiming that he'd actually never troll us. So once again, I'm pretty skeptical because yeah, saying that, you know, I would never troll you guys, would I? When you already have? Sounds like a troll to me. Troll alarm going off. We know that that ain't true. He's definitely trolled us in the past. In a post he made in June of 2017, Scott claimed he wanted to stop working on FNAF 6 and didn't want his next FNAF game to be something big and grandiose, just something light and fun. He even joked about making a pizzeria tycoon game instead, and yet we know what happened. We all know, which makes us think this post was actually intended to troll, as FNAF 6 did of course later came out. It was light and fun and was a pizzeria tycoon game, sure, but it was also only released a short while later and had major lore implications and narrative points divulged within it. So I gotta say, in retrospect, this seems like once again another troll, but cleverly disguised as a real post. Number 9. FNAF World Halloween Edition. This one came later, and yet there were still some folks who kind of fell for it. Mostly though, I think many of us just enjoy these pranks and buy into them because we want to see what Scott has cooked up this time around. He's just so good at trolling. With FNAF World Halloween Edition, it was released on October 28th of 2015, with a hacker by the username of lols_hacks, claiming they had gotten the files for FNAF World and were going to release them for free. When the files were released, as promised, it turned out to be FNAF World Halloween Edition, which was actually just a reskin of Scott Cawthon's old game, Fighter Mage Bard, and where these 3 classes that were in that game were reskinned as Freddy, Bonnie, and of course Chica. Turned out that lols_hacks was of course none other than Scott himself, once more trolling us. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Gaming, you need to go check out our newest channel, Most Amazing Top 10 Anime. Go on over, hit that subscribe, and tell them I sent ya. Number 8. Foxy Fighters. Foxy Fighters was a game that was designed as a mini game and added to FNAF World after the 1.2 update. It was a fun little game where you controlled Foxy in a little plane that is armed with, well, like a little weapon. I wouldn't call it a fighter jet, but technically it's designed similar to one, although its look is radically different from most fighter jets in the real world. Foxy is controlled using the WASD keys on the computer, and to fire you just hit shift. It's a simply designed little game, and at one point Scott claimed he actually wanted to potentially work on a game that was all Foxy Fighter, sharing that he had so much fun making it just as a little game for fans to add into the FNAF world. Well, I do believe he did have fun making it. I think when he shared his potential interest in turning it into a full-fledged spin-off game all its own, it was definitely a form of a troll, because I don't see that ever happening.
And at 7, Music Man! Now, a more recent embarrassing moment, or maybe it's not embarrassing to him, Matt Pat was reacting to the latest trailer, at least at the time, for Security Breach, when he sees a giant Music Man crawl out of a hole in the West Arcade, a sequence we now know as one of the best in the entire game. But his reaction to the character's first appearance, iconic, with a very intense Music Man! Matt Pat flipped about being right with one of his mini theories about the legs we see on screen in Freddy and Friends on Tour episode 3 or 4, where he claimed that the white gloves really indicated that it was going to be Music Man. But this moment was not only iconic, but kinda memeified, with me referencing it multiple times in various previous videos, and the internet even remixing this into a song that is so much of a jam even Snoop Dogg would bop to it. I mean, like, there's also the whole meme of crying child as a kid wearing any shirt with 2 stripes thing that was going around, and then I even used it in a thumbnail for Top 10 Gaming Elite. That's probably more embarrassing, but I haven't really gotten to talk about the whole Music Man thing, so I wanted to. And at 6, Panic. Honestly, looking back, panicking at all during a FNAF game is pretty embarrassing, since nothing can really hurt you, and while yes, in VR it definitely feels like you're really there, it's not really going to cause any danger to you. Although, I will say that I am totally a little bitch when it comes to horror, okay? The first time I played FNAF VR, I played it on the channel, and I'm already bad at normal FNAF, so playing it in VR was even worse, okay? I was even worse, which resulted in me running out of power on the first night, which is kind of my signature move. So, as the slowed March of the Toreador started playing, I was freaking out, and I knew that was pretty embarrassing. But not only that, I actually then proceeded to survive the night since the time hit 6 AM, thus making all that panicking worthless and for nothing. I'll let you in on a little secret though, okay? Well, what you saw was embarrassing. The reason I find it so embarrassing was because I was closing my eyes in the headset. Yeah, I had planned on reacting to the jump scare sound, since I would be able to tell audio-wise and I wouldn't have to deal with Freddy in my face. But yeah, closed my eyes in a VR headset because I'm a little bit. Halfway through, into number 5, Springtrap Rule. One of the other most embarrassing things that, while may not have happened to anyone or in any of the FNAF games, is just the sheer amount of famous internet rule images and videos that there are for these characters. But like, okay, look, with Chica, I get it. God damn it, there I go again. But the worst one of all, at least I think on the embarrassment scale, is Springtrap Rule 34 art. That rule being for anything you can find on the internet, somewhere, somehow, there will be an adult version of that content. And unsurprisingly, FNAF and even Springtrap are not immune to this rule, unfortunately. But just think about that for a second, please. Most people consider William Afton to be dead, even if he's not actually dead. Which means that most people who look at this are looking at a dead serial killer's rotting corpse stuck inside an animatronic that has shoved every inch of him with metal and robotic bits and thinking, damn, that's sexy. I've had people DM me these forms of Springtrap images before. Like, bro, what? Why? Like, he's literally a man who should be dead, but is being kept alive by the spirit of one of his kid victims, and you want to see him flog the dolphin? This is the reason that God left in Supernatural. God has left the chat. Jesus has left the chat. Allah has left. Everyone has left. Satan has left the chat. In at 4, FNAF 4 prediction. Oh, look at that. Once again, MatPat is on this list. However, I've made enough digs at myself. It's kind of equal, so I think it's allowed. But during the build up to FNAF 4, we really had no idea what was going on. And then once it released early on, MatPat thought that he had won, saying that in a rush to actually release FNAF 4, Scott missed a huge detail that made the game actually impossible, without even pointing out how anything is possible in a series about animatronics being possessed by the souls of children and a killer who literally can't die. The entire theory relied on the point that this was the bite of 87, something that last time I noted is one of the most embarrassing debates in all of FNAF history, saying that if the frontal lobe of the brain had been removed by an animatronic, the kid that we play as wouldn't feel fear, thus the nightmare animatronics were impossible. And you know what? This would have been true had this have been the bite of 87. However, we now know that that is not the case. But since MatPat was stuck in con season, we'll give him a bit of a pass here. But seriously, looking back, it's pretty cringe, especially with what we know now. Like, looking back on any past theory, especially my own when more evidence comes to life, is a pretty rough deal, but yeah.
Number 3, fun little game. When Scott commits to a troll, he definitely doubles down. This happened with FNAF 6 Pizzeria Simulator when Scott revealed that the screenshots he'd revealed for the game prior to its release were accurate to the tone, and that it was just supposed to be a light, fun game for fans to enjoy. It wasn't supposed to be a major release, he said. And having received negative feedback on the poor quality based on the screenshots, he just wanted to clarify. He wanted to clarify. But he wasn't really clarifying, really. Was he? He was trolling us again. He wanted to troll us. He saw people coming for him and he's like, I see an opportunity to troll people by doubling down. As we learn when FNAF 6 was released, and it wasn't just a fun, light little game for the community, it was undoubtedly a major release. It was fun and light, but also very dark. Number 2, Sister Location MA. Sister Location mature. As time went on, so too did the trolls, and I think they also got better too as time went on. Just my personal opinion. One of my favorite troll moments actually comes in association with one of my all-time favorite FNAF games, Sister Location. Now with Sister Location, just as the game was nearing its release date, Scott put out a statement claiming that the game, it actually might be too dark for release at this point, and he said he was thinking about spending another 6 months of development on it to make it more family friendly. The mature or MA version was shared, but it turned out it was once again just Scott trolling us. The real Sister Location was a bit darker, but still safe enough for all audiences and was released the next day as planned. So it's all good. Wasn't mature enough for that rating. Number 1, Pizzeria Simulator. When you think about it, FNAF 6 itself was kind of like a troll all on its own. A really great troll though. An admirable troll that was also actually FNAF 6. Why do I consider FNAF 6 a troll? Because it appeared as a harmless pizzeria simulator even when you started playing it, but in reality, as time goes on, you learn it is a dark, depressing story covered in fake glitz, fun, and glam. Well, some real fun, glitz, and glam, I think, but also it's really dark. It wasn't a game that you could skip either, like was implied before. The story tied into this game was actually relevant to the whole franchise and the main narrative. So although it seemed light, it was still just as convoluted, necessary, and complex as other games that we'd had in the past. That also is kind of what makes FNAF 6 so great. It is the troll vibes of Scott Cawthon that we've enjoyed in the past made manifest in game form. Maybe the best kind of troll out there. I feel like game trolls are great, especially when you play games and you're like, I think I know what this is, and then they're like, whoa, no, you don't. I surprised you. You thought this was a fun dating sim? It's a horror game.
In at 10 to Rockstar Row. During the so-called interrogation and torture scene in Parts and Service, or at least that's what people are calling it, based on the titles of videos on YouTube, Vanessa questions Freddy about Gregory and accuses Freddy of helping us, which I mean is true, but she shouldn't even have to accuse him. More on that later. After telling him that she's gonna leave him down there until he can get put on a new endo, which doesn't really make sense if his coding is the issue and not the endoskeleton itself, why would she leave to Rockstar Row through Roxy's lift? Why? When she could have easily just come our way and head into the main atrium. That's where Gregory is for the majority of the game, and that's where all the animatronics are patrolling and have been spotting him. It would make more sense to go there than to Rockstar Row, where he was seen maybe twice at this point. Like, I don't know, it seems weird to me. I don't understand. Maybe like the whole logic behind this is that since all the animatronics are out in the atrium, she doesn't need to be there, or maybe she needs to be somewhere where she can get to her Vanny suit quickly, but I don't know. Even if it is Vanessa taking over and not like glitch trap at this point, I still don't get why she wouldn't just go to the atrium. In at 9, Bag of Rocks. Before Vanessa leaves Freddy in Parts and Service, okay, she says that it's so that his casing can be put on a new endo after they probably have someone on the clock who can do it normally. But then after that, she doesn't seem to be suspicious that he's walking around in front of her maybe within like 3 minutes. What? Who would have repaired him if not for, like, if it wasn't Gregory? There's literally no other human in the Pizzaplex, or at least that's alive at this point, and you know, Freddy can't really do it himself. The whole cylinder thing is to protect humans, there are no staff bots in this section, and the only reason that you had to leave him was because nobody else was working. Hello? You there, McFly? Like, why would Vanessa be so chill about Freddy just like walking around in front of her? She literally left him with his head removed, and now she's like, what, assuming that he somehow did it himself, which is literally impossible as he was strapped down? Even if he had done it himself, why wouldn't she see him and then confine him to his room, especially after just accusing him of helping to protect Gregory? Okay, it's something that confuses me like so much, and I found it weird in my first playthrough, so I figured that if we got close to Vanessa, she would pull us out of Freddy, but like, I walked up to her to test it and nothing. She gave absolutely zero shits. Like, why? She's dumber than a bag of rocks at this point. It would have been so easy just to make like that little modification to her code for at least this part of the game, like making her a little bit more dangerous if she saw Freddy, but no, they didn't. In at 8, Princess Quest. The whole reason Princess Quest is a thing in this game was to lock Vanessa away in her brain and prevent her from regaining full control over her body. So why did William create or allow for the creation of a fail-safe in this system that allows her to escape? I mean, like, sure, they didn't expect a kid to come along and figure it out maybe, but first of all, it's an arcade machine, of course I'm gonna goddamn play it, but also given the track record of literally all of your plans, you'd think that Afton would have smartened up after like 40 years at the very least, but he doesn't, okay? It's like having a self-destruct button on the bomb that you plan to use to blow up Gotham City, okay? Or like it's like, I don't get it. It's like if the Joker had a purify water supply button just on him or something, okay? It's dumb. If you want something to work, why give it a way to fail? Or maybe that's just my brain and my perfectionism talking, but again, it's one of the dumbest things that Afton has actually ever done in the series. Like, canonically it doesn't backfire somehow, but that's aside the point. Like, but seriously, why would you have a way to undo your evil plans? A 4-year-old can do this. The fact that this wasn't the canon ending is actually just insane how that didn't happen. Just bury the third machine, at least, goddamn. Like, if that's the intention behind it, just bury it and leave it, okay? Fill it with concrete and leave it. Jeez.
Number 7. FNAF 3. This troll happened while FNAF 3 was still in development. Scott took to Steam Greenlight to share that the third game had actually been cancelled because someone had leaked it all on GameJolt, and in frustration, he would be tossing in the towel on it. Scott claimed this had happened as a result of him being hacked. However, when you went to the page on GameJolt and you downloaded that game, it wasn't actually FNAF 3, but instead it was a game with a FNAF 3 inspired loading menu that was actually a reskin of one of Scott's older games. There is no pause button. Many fans freaked though before discovering this, and of course that Scott himself was actually behind the troll, because of course he was. Number 6. Ultimate Custom Night Demo. One of the latest in the line of game trolls we've gotten from Scott is Ultimate Custom Night Demo. This was released to the general public, but it turned out to just be a prank. While the actual demo did exist, it was only given to professional gaming YouTubers to do playthroughs and review the game prior to its release. The publicly released demo was actually a reskin of Scott Cawthon's very first computer game from 1989, Doofus the Dinosaur. Once again, faces and characters were replaced, or rather reskinned, to look like familiar FNAF characters and animatronics in each level of the game. Number 5. HTML Feud. There have been a few times that Scott has shared that game making is simply too much stress for him, and although I imagine that actually must be true sometimes, especially with all of us expecting so much from him, I don't think any of us believed that he didn't enjoy working on FNAF, right? At least we hoped it wasn't true. But when he started to hide arguments in the HTML code of his sites, where it seemed to make it seem like they were arguing with each other, fans thought for sure that his claims of being overworked and overstressed from constantly aiming to outdo himself were all part of some greater ploy. We didn't buy it. And that, of course, the HTML feud was none other than him creating some fun and fake drama in relation to the story of the next game, which at this time, of course, was FNAF 6. And it turned out, while this was planned to seem as though there was a fight going on, it was of course only in relation to that narrative in the games, with the fight likely resembling the one within Ennard between all the shared consciousness of animatronics. Number 4. Help Wanted. Scott is not above poking fun at himself or the franchise and enjoys trolling us even within the game and the world of FNAF. Case in point, his actual appearance in Help Wanted. Not in the flesh, but in picture form, implying that the games we play are created within the very world of FNAF itself and tarnish the reputation of Fazbear Entertainment, even as we play mini-games in the VR game inspired by the previous games themselves, which are apparently in the world, but also, I guess, actually happen. It is a meta paradox that we are in. It's a meta paradox, or at least that's what it feels like. Scott's picture is thrown up, and he is referred to as a nameless indie game developer who made said games, which of course is true, but also in the world of FNAF, it breaks my brain.
Getting close to the end, into number 3, Destruction. And isn't it convenient that there is a way to break every other animatronic that isn't Freddy? Okay, that leaves the animatronic broken in such a way that we can remove whatever aspect we actually needed to upgrade Freddy? Hell yeah it is. It's so convenient, in fact, that there is somehow a way to break them that just works perfectly for their personality, and the perfect amount of the animatronics as well. That works the first time. And even with Chica, okay, we push her into a goddamn trash compactor and somehow don't get crushed ourselves despite her grabbing onto us and pulling us with her. We only get pulled down into another area of the Pizzaplex that we can still get back to the Pizzaplex through, and you know, we weren't pulled into a thing that crushed our skulls. So yeah, needless to say that looking at this logically, it makes absolutely zero sense that any of this actually happened. Okay, we didn't even need to crush the animatronics, and instead we could have just chilled in Freddy's room until 6 AM when the doors opened. And ultimately, in at number 2, staying until 6. Speaking of which, Glamrock Freddy straight up encourages Gregory to risk his life in order to get out of the Pizzaplex, when in all honesty, the safest thing to do would have just been to keep him in your stomach or in your green room until 6 AM, especially after the door closes and he was definitely stuck, which just, it makes no sense.
whatsoever if Freddy is really meant to be protecting Gregory. There was no need for the whole daycare secret escape hatch thing. You could have just gone back the way you came and everything would have been fine. You wouldn't have been suspicious since you would have at least appeared to be like you listened to Vanessa after you saw her in the healing area and went actually back to your room, and then Gregory would have been safe, especially after you knew that there was some crazy bunny running around the pizza place looking to slaughter him. So yeah, if Glamrock Freddy is like supposed to be protecting him, he did a horrible job at protecting this kid. Okay, I don't understand. You can think of all the excuses you want for him, but if Gregory had just waited in Freddy's green room, everything would have been fine. That's it. That's period. And finally, in at number 1, probable betrayal. I know that nobody wants to believe me on this, okay? We all want to hold out hope that finally one of the animatronics is going to be good and trying to help us, but Glamrock Freddy, after everything on this list, is almost certainly evil and just waiting for the perfect moment to strike. We've made a whole video about that, okay? And now, honestly, this one is kind of about that too. This guy makes some hella sketchy choices throughout our entire time at the Pizzaplex and only makes things worse for us. He takes us to get healed despite us saying no and having a limited time to leave, which ends up making us get locked inside the Pizzaplex. We also just sit in the booth and don't actually get healed, by the way, okay? He was unable to access the main Pizzaplex network despite having no reason to be disconnected, since at this point he wasn't suspected of helping us. And after Vanessa leaves Freddy without his head and parts in service, she sees him fully reassembled in less than 5 minutes and doesn't question it, like I said. Almost as if it was the plan the whole time. There's no way that he could have been put back together normally, and they just don't care, okay? The only way that this makes sense, any of this makes sense, is that if Freddy is secretly evil, and maybe even he doesn't know it. Maybe Afton is like in the back of his mind just like waiting to come forward. In at 10, ghost stories. There was a thread on the FNAF Reddit about role-playing as an in-universe FNAF outsider, and this tale comes from Super Bowl Meme, who thought that the ghost stories were just that, ghost stories. I remember going to Fazbear's during its final days open. It was fun, despite all the rumors surrounding the place. I went back there recently though, and my experience has shown me things I never could have imagined. I busted in late at night around 4 AM, and the place was abandoned for several years before this, and it showed. Without maintenance, the place looked like the opposite of somewhere children would want to go, and I looked around and I was trying to find something, like literally anything, but all I found was the stage and the performers. They were, old to say the least, completely rotten and moldy, and I could barely breathe around them. Then after seeing them, I noticed something. They were focusing on me. Solely on me. Then Freddy blinked. I've never ran faster before, and I don't know if it was a dream or maybe those rumors are more than just stories. Their eyes told me everything. In at 9, Twitter. The Twitter account Diamond Zia on June 27, 2020 tweeted out 3 photos with the line "FNAF will be real in 48 hours." These pictures were just of news articles. One from USA Today titled "5 Children Have Gone Missing Inside Chuck E. Cheese." One from Associated Press called "Post-Hour Worker at Chuck E. Cheese Reported Dead at 27." And a final one from something news, couldn't quite tell what it was, saying "Night shift worker at Chuck E. Cheese's claims strange movement from animatronics during post hours." However, this title had animatronics spelled incorrect. Yeah, everyone was freaking out at the pictures and the articles, particularly the first one, and they were shared all across the internet. People were freaking out because, you know, we all thought that FNAF was gonna be real. Chuck E. Cheese was closing at this time too. However, people didn't realize that these were fake. How are they fake, do you ask? Source code editing, okay? You can change whatever, like what anything says on a website. All you need to do is inspect the source code on like Google Chrome or something, okay? You just need to find the aspect that you're looking for, then once you do, you can change it to whatever you want. So whoever made the original image found an article about Chuck E. Cheese closing or something, and then just changed it to 5 children going missing, okay? And the same thing with the other ones. That's why there was only pictures and not actual articles. However, now we know that Freddy Fazbear's is getting a pizza delivery service, so I guess technically, in a way, Freddy Fazbear's was real, but not in the actual location, okay? There's no location. And it 8, doors. This was bound to be on a list eventually, okay? I hate the goddamn doors in this game. Why do they open when the power is out? That makes no sense. Even if it's like an electromagnet, like everyone keeps saying in the comments whenever I bring this up, those require power to turn on. So if anything, it would be costing power to keep the door open rather than closed. Gravity doesn't work in reverse. If the magnet is off, then the door would just fall down. I get that it's for gameplay purposes, okay, but what in this universe makes this make sense? There's no conceivable way that these doors should work in this fashion, but they do, and it makes me mad. Like, why would you do this to me? Sky Daddy Scott, bringing it back. Why? This is so stupid. I don't know. I don't know if anyone can actually believe that this is how they work, okay? Some people say it's a fire safety thing, but if the building runs out of power, how are the doors open? Electromagnets don't work like that. God, it would cost more power to keep them open. At least operating at normal logic levels, okay? The tails of these doors have to be some form of Legend of the FNAF universe, because they're just stupid. And at 7, stealing security badges. Not only is Gregory just a really weird kid in general who wears Fazbear merch but also doesn't know that Chica loves pizza, he's also a thief. This guy steals so many things from the Pizzaplex, not even including all the little gift boxes that you can find around that are only optional. He also steals the security badges and ends up getting enough to have level 7 clearance as like a 4-year-old or a 6-year-old or however old he is. Okay, it's really unclear. Because like he can't ride the go-kart alone, and he can fit inside of Freddy's chest cavity, but he can also speak full sentences with proper grammar and stuff. Okay, I have no idea how old he actually is, but he is still able to gain level 7 clearance. But like, how are they so readily available for him to steal? And how is it that taking these badges always triggers some event that makes everything worse for him? Like, how are the security guards supposed to like use these badges if that's what happens every time they take it? Or, an even better question actually, how are these security badges laying around in special containers when security should just have their pass with their clearance level on it, like on their belt? Okay, I don't get it. Plus, how does gaining multiple level 1 passes end up adding up to a level 8 clearance? That's all, it's still all level 1, okay? I don't get it. It makes absolutely no sense, and it's almost as if they set it up for him to see how long it would play out or something, or how well he would do. I don't know. And at 6, fire. Okay, so during the true ending, otherwise known as the Afton ending or the Burn Trap ending or whatever the hell you want to yell at me for not calling it ending, we have to fend off Burn Trap's attempts to take control over Freddy by setting him on fire using what I'm guessing are the mechanisms that Henry uses to set the fire in FNAF 6, since this is the same location. However, it's incredibly convenient how we fall into the room that has all of this stuff in it, that it has the monitors set up connected to the cameras in the various rooms that Burn Trap enters exclusively, with buttons that light the fires in the corresponding room that like has the camera on the monitor. Yeah, despite it being far more convenient for Henry to light all of them at the same time, I don't get how this works. Plus, I mean, like, if you think about it, how are these still working? It's clearly been a while, and some of the comments report that the Pizzaplex has been open for at least 4 years, which I don't know if it is accurate because, I mean, it's the YouTube comments. But if it is, these cameras and old-ass computers are still working 4 years after being set on fire that was enough to ruin the building. Not to mention also falling into a sinkhole that would have had to open up underneath it since we have to travel down an elevator to actually get into this section of the pizza place. How is all of this still working after all of that? And if you say that it was Vanny, that even adds more questions, like why make sure the fire systems are working and then they're set to being separate buttons? Plus, why have the computer monitors set up to look at the right area? I don't get it. And how are these these computer monitors are literal dinosaurs. How did they work before the fire, let alone after it? This is the kind of thing that demonstrates the line between luck and intent, because there was no way this many things lined up for him, excluding plot armor, because we kind of need to ignore protagonist syndrome for this entire list. But still, if this was just happening, that would not happen. Never. No way. Halfway through into number 5, Ice Cold Captive. Gregory in the Faster Blast ending actually orders the robots to disassemble Vanny, since she just ordered them to disassemble Freddy. But like, disassembling a robot and a human are two very different things. Okay, trust me, I would know. I'm surprised the robots even listened to him. Adding on to that, the fact that Gregory is willing to kill Vanny here, it's pretty messed up, especially given that like most people assume that he's 10 or 11, which doesn't really seem to make sense. Either way, you could argue that he doesn't know any better, but clearly he does. Okay, this kid is able to destroy all 3 animatronics without a moment's hesitation, use their upgrades on Freddy, he's willing to kill Vanny despite seemingly knowing her like we see in the best ending, and then he burns Burn Trap multiple times to make sure he doesn't take over Freddy. Okay, what the living hell is this kid doing? Like, how was he raised? How is he so nonchalant about literally doing all of this? This guy kills Vanny and then only gets emotional when he has to go talk to Freddy, who is destroyed. Dude, Vanny is bleeding out not 3 feet from you. She is torn to shreds and you're crying over a robot that can be fixed? Something isn't right about this kid. He's supposed to be the captive here, but he's the one putting everyone else in danger, I swear. In it for recharge. What's the deal with airplane food and Glamrock Freddy and needing to recharge every 5 minutes, okay? Like, in the game sense, time isn't moving when I'm running around for 5 hours since I haven't actually progressed the story. So if this animatronic is supposed to need to recharge every hour only, why is this such an issue? And why does he only use power when we're actually piloting him like a mech? If this is the case, shouldn't this man also be losing power when we summon him to grab us from the 3rd basement floor? Like, why not? And why does he need to recharge but seemingly all the other animatronics don't? I never see Chica, Roxy, or Monty in a recharge station. Okay, even if you are around when they should be, when the hour hits. Okay, it's stupid, it's confusing, and it doesn't make any sense. It's almost like Freddy is doing this to us on purpose. Either because he thinks that it's funny, or maybe he really is working for Vanny, but needs to gain our trust and make excuses for why he can't be around us all the time, so that he can just go and give her the information, or why he can't just why we can't hide inside of him all night, okay? There's something fishy going on with this animatronic, and I swear in the next game we're going to figure out that he betrayed us off screen. Or at least in the DLC we're going to figure that out. Getting close to the end, in at number 3, Princess Cassidy. According to one very adamant viewer during my last 24-hour live stream, that was a whole other set of emotional trauma, there's a theory that the princess in Princess Quest is actually meant to be Cassidy. And while I don't agree with that theory, it's still a theory nonetheless, so I might as well talk about it. This theory generated from some apparent files within one of the games. I'm guessing that it was Security Breach, given that there are 3 games in that one compared to FNAF VR's mobile version where there was only 1. But apparently, according to this viewer, those files indicated that it was Cassidy, because it was named Cassidy, okay? Apparently that they changed it, so there goes that evidence. But despite me saying that I didn't care what it found, they were very adamant and were swearing by it. They swore that it was Cassidy. The only reason that I could believe this would be for purely symbolic reasons, since Cassidy would technically be trying to torture William if they were the one you should not have killed, which I still don't believe, but that would also end up giving her a motive to free Vanessa from William's control. But that would be the only reasoning I'd be able to actually think of for this, which makes it seem more like a hypothesis than a theory to me, especially given that they changed the file, the name on the file, so it wasn't Cassidy. And while Cassidy may have been incorrect, it did end up containing a soul, the soul of Vanessa. So in the end, it is true, in a way, which makes it good enough for this list. Okay, I'm kinda stretching at this point. 3 parts is a lot. But ultimately, in at number 2, Fazbear Frights. While yes, I did include Felix the Shark and his whole book on the list as a number, that's because those are like even legends in the Fazbear Frights universe, like I said, since they were cut stories that were thrown together for a cash grab 12th book, let's be honest. However, I think that by FNAF standards, all these stories would have to be legends. I mean, like, come on, the story of a man who can't die in a hospital. While relating to Afton, we know that it didn't happen since we see Afton in the burn trap suit in Security Breach. Plus, sea bonnies, come on, that's so utterly insane and stupid that these stories must only fit into the lore by being legends. Like, things based in somewhat of a real original story that then get blown out of proportion to be something else, but with that root of reality. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the difference between a myth and a legend, okay? Myths are entirely fictional, then legends have kind of a root. That's the one thing I learned from my second semester, second year college elective, okay? It's the only thing though. This entire book series are just FNAF universe legends that are passed around in universe, which kind of makes them cooler because it's a look into like the general population of the FNAF universe, but that's a thing for another day. And finally, in at number 1, God's Wrath. Okay, so this seems to be an easy way of interpreting multiple fires that keep happening at FNAF locations. It could possibly be seen as God, or a god, trying to cleanse the restaurants, or punishing them for causing so much grief, okay? I mean, think about it. There have been 3 fires now at FNAF locations, including Fazbear's Fright, the simulated pizzeria from from FNAF 6, and then the Security Breach Mega Pizzaplex, each location having some form of horrible story attached to it. And I think that in a way, the people may have started to see these places as cursed, or maybe every fire makes them think the place is cleansed of their darkness, which means that they can go back, which explains why everyone is just constantly returning to Fazbear's despite multiple kids going missing every time. Like in the Security Breach opening scene, it's packed full of kids despite there being 9 kids that have gone missing there already. So maybe the explanation is that the darkness and sins of the restaurant are cleansed due to fire. Or maybe they think that the place is cursed to eternally suffer God's wrath, and that's why there's so much darkness around the place. But then again, if you think that it's cursed to suffer God's wrath because of the horrible people, why would you go back? Basically, I'm using this to call out why are people going back, okay? It's stupid. Don't do it. Stop. In a 10, Afton possessed. A long time ago, I made a passing comment that Afton wasn't actually dead. People were mad that I didn't put Springtrap on the original scariest animatronics list, and aside from him being literally so unscary that they had to make a whole new game to compensate, I also argued that since he's just a guy enhanced by robotics, he wasn't an animatronic and instead a cyborg. And in the great terms of Fallout 4, nobody liked that. Even when I cited the fact that even MatPat pointed out that Springtrap never dies. But that's aside the point. However, I was in fact proven correct when the story of the man in room 1280 came around to show us that William was unable to die thanks to the spirit of the one you should not have killed, a young boy with an alligator mask in the books who was keeping him alive so that he could suffer for his crimes. And until this day, most people still won't accept that despite it being proven, okay? They take him off life support in the book and he's still kicking after that, okay? So whether this hospital experience actually happens or not, the point of the book was to show us that Afton was possessed and that's how he survived, okay? Someone needs to update the wikis, because they still say that he died as a human. He didn't really die until like the FNAF 6 fire, maybe when he became a sentient code, if we want to consider that dying. In at 9, the Golden Killer. I am absolutely positive that the FNAF universe has plenty of urban legends about these restaurants. I mean, like, how could they not? A place where kids keep going missing that then gets shut down and reopens almost every 5 years. If that's not a cause for urban legends, I don't know what is. Christ, this is one of the most horrifying stories a parent could ever hear about. Like, if anyone so much as looked at in our direction wrong as a kid, my father would ban us from returning. It was insane, and I'm honestly surprised that he didn't me. Either way, there must be tales of the Golden Killer that would dress in an animatronic suit and lure children away with the promise of free tickets and pizza. Obviously used as a cautionary tale by parents about the dangers of talking to strangers, but I think they may not realize how close and how serious these stories actually are, especially given that the Pizzaplex, at least when it's open, is still packed full of children despite 9 kids already going missing there. In at 8, Springtrap. Another urban legend from the FNAF universe that's also in the FNAF universe, like it's from the FNAF universe but also inside the FNAF universe, is Springtrap. The whole point of Springtrap was that he was an old animatronic that still worked that they set loose in the Fazbear Fright horror attraction. The attraction that was a replica of the old Freddy Fazbear's Pizza located inside an actual amusement park meant to revive the decades-old urban legends that surrounded the establishment from 30 years ago. Springtrap's whole purpose was to be an urban legend. If we got to see more from like the actual universe, like materials and newspapers, I'm sure that they would have marketed the only working animatronic as horrifying and actually possessed by one of the original victims, all while being unaware that it was actually the killer that they had set loose once more. From a story standpoint, I see why they had to do it like this. It actually like puts stakes back into the series because the killer's out again. But my real question is, why did Henry sell the location, okay? I mean, like, they bought the place to get scraps, right? So why did Henry sell it if he was just planning on burning it down? Like, why risk William getting loose? Why even burn it down when he was already trapped in the room and had been stuck in there for 30 years, okay? It seems painfully stupid in my opinion. Dude, you don't need to sell it, okay? Just let him suffer. And it's 7, investigation. Speaking of things that are too ridiculous for people to believe, do FNAF universe people think that the cops are horrible at their job? Like, we know that there was an investigation into the incidents thanks to Midnight Motorist from FNAF 6, but they never found the bodies. Like, even though the animatronics smelt like death and were oozing blood and mucus, so much that they had to shut down according to FNAF 1 newspaper clippings. So, what gives? Why did they close the investigation so quickly? Or why didn't they look into the suits when it was reported that they had blood on them? I don't care care if it's the 80s and the police don't have the tech they do now. If a place you are investigating because there's missing people and you found no bodies and then something starts leaking blood, you go and check the thing out. You can't just leave and be like, that can't be related. Who the hell thinks like that? It's so stupid. And honestly, even though it's a game and like there had to be a reason to continue on, it shouldn't have happened. I get that they found the body, like if they found the bodies, we wouldn't have gotten the games. But sometimes it's quality over quantity, okay? You know, maybe they had to meet their arrest quota for the month, so they just arrested someone. Is the incompetence of the police is that a legend in this universe, or what do they think happened? And at 6, FNAF ARG. This was brought up in a recent MatPat FNAF theory, okay? The basic idea is that the FNAF Fazbear Frights books were originally going to have an ARG that Scott ended up cutting out for whatever reason, and then released part of it in the Felix the Shark Book 12. However, I'm here to tell you guys, not real. Scott has said on multiple occasions that he doesn't want to cross the line between fact and fiction, that he wanted to keep these two worlds separate, probably because FNAF relates so closely to Chuck E. Cheese, and there might be some legal trouble there, but that's also why he said he would never make a real location. He stuck so hard to that he didn't even make a website for the indie game dev introduced in FNAF VR because he thought that would be too fuzzy. So there is no FNAF ARG, okay? If a website relating to the game is too much, there is no bigger quest here. Last time we thought there was a restaurant and ended up getting harassed, and then a pizzeria owner who just so happened to be named Mike also got harassed, so please don't go out searching for this. And if there was one, I'm sure that Scott would have said something about it. Don't harass random people, okay? Just stick to the games and the game files themselves. But with that being said, with the appearance of a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza delivery service from Virtual Dining Concepts, maybe there's an outlet for Scott to release secret bits of lore. However, it would involve people needing to buy food, so if he chose to do that, it may not go over the best, but still, even if that is the case, it would only come from this virtual restaurant, nowhere else. Halfway through into number 5, Felix the Shark. Felix the Shark is the first story in Fazbear Frights 12, Felix the Shark, and unofficially the Fazbear Frights series 34th story, and it's written by Andrea Wagner. And I feel like this is, the entire book is more so FNAF Urban Legends since these didn't make it into official release. So this one in particular though is worth pointing out since it does resemble Sparky the dog in many ways. Dirk, an adult, reminisces about Freddy's with his group of friends. They all bond over the familiar characters of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. However, when Dirk brings up the character Felix the Shark, his friends get confused. He recalls specific details, that Felix the Shark was kept in an aquarium-like large tube around the pizzeria that visitors could enter and swim up along with him, but his friends believed that he was just making it up. Determined to prove this memory was true, Dirk visits multiple Freddy's locations in many states to find one that actually had a Felix. And finally, in a near abandoned town, he finds a few people who remember Felix, all of whom had terrible nightmares concerning him. And this is exactly how urban legends start and grow. And I mean, in this it turned out to be true, but come on, this whole book is urban legends, even by FNAF Fazbear Frights standards. And at 4, FNAF AR. I've said it before and I will say it a million times. Why is the company sending out animatronics that they know are dangerous? The whole point of FNAF AR is that the company is sending these people animatronics to try and rebuild their reputation, right? But then they see that they're infected with the virus that's turning them hostile, and instead of recalling them like any normal company, they send out more, including multiple versions of the killer that caused them to ruin their reputation in the first place. What did they not think that it was just an older Bonnie model and they're like, oh yeah, Springtrap? Okay, come on. If that was the case, it would be listed in AR as Old Bonnie or Spring Bonnie, not Springtrap, okay? They know exactly what they're doing and nobody called them out for it. Companies will get in trouble for making the freaking tiniest mistake in their games, but then this company can get away with just letting people die. That's sus as hell, okay? Purple is sus. That's so ridiculous that the FNAF universe had to believe that this concept is just an urban legend, right? That's so dumb. Who would do that? Nobody would believe that it actually happened. Getting close to the end into number 3, Bunny Man's urban legend. Okay, so I play video games to disconnect from reality. I'm sure some of you do too. When I play super hot in VR, I know that I can't really do it in real life because I can't catch guns, but I can slow down time. But when scary games like FNAF are all of a sudden connected to real life horrible events, it's not really all that easy to play. And you know what? I hardly played them to begin with. Vanny is a follower of Glitchtrap, okay? You know that. She's the main villain of Security Breach, but players noticed something similar about the game's antagonist. Something connected to something very real from the 70s, the Bunny Man. In Fairfax County, Virginia, back in the late 70s, residents would report sightings of a Bunny Man who would run around and terrorize locals. They say the Bunny Man disappeared in the early 80s, but maybe they just disguised themselves as an animatronic, okay? Maybe the Bunny Man's still out there. You thought that Easter was a good idea? Ha, no, not anymore. Good luck sleeping tonight. Plus, I mean, Security Breach does have a very 80s aesthetic, so maybe this is where Bunny Man went. But ultimately, in at number 2, the Missing Children's Incident. The Missing Children's Incident was an event that occurred in the first Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location, at least from the first game, presumably in 1985. A series of unsolved murders committed by William Afton. In the first game, the incident was mentioned in newspaper clippings, occasionally seen replacing the Rules for Safety sign, normally appearing in the East Hall. The 4 mascots, Freddy Fazbear, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, all also had particularly foul odors and what appeared to be blood and mucus around their eyes and mouth, which concerned parents and legal guardians and decided to akin to reanimated carcasses, since they, quote, noticed what appeared to be blood and mucus around the eyes and mouths of the mascots, and they didn't check inside them for bodies. The children were never found, somehow, and presumed dead, and the restaurant ended up closing by year's end, which didn't stop them from reopening in Fazbear's Fright, and then with FNAF 6, and then again with the Pizzaplex. So yeah, needless to say, there's a whole load of issues surrounding the brains of the parents in this universe. And finally, in at number 1, the Bite of 87. Was that the Bite of 87? No, Markiplier, it was not. The Bite from FNAF 4 was in 1983, and often called the Chomp or the Bite of 83. Okay, the Bite of 87 was an incident that occurred in 1987 at the second Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location. It was briefly mentioned by Phone Guy in the first game, and it had us hooked from the get-go. The details of this attack and the identity of the animatronic responsible are really unknown, but it allegedly caused the victim to lose their frontal lobe, you know, the front part of their brain. The victim actually ended up surviving the attack, but the incident contributed to a loss in the company's reputation, understandably, which was one of the numerous incidents that resulted in a major drop in business. But not forever, for some reason. As a result of the incident, the animatronics were no longer allowed to wander around during the day, instead management decided to let their free roaming mode be exclusive to night so as to prevent their servos from locking up, which is not how servos work, but maybe it's how they work in this universe. Some fans think that Foxy caused the bite, others think Freddy, Mangle, some even think that Chica might have done it. However, it's pretty generally accepted that Jeremy from FNAF 2 is the one who got bit. But I propose the possibility, okay, I'm not saying this is true, but it's an idea, that Afton himself is actually the one who got bit, which could have caused him to go even more berserk after the Missing Children's incident. Since, cause you know, his frontal lobe was removed, he would no longer feel fear, as described by MatPat in his FNAF 4's wrong theory. I mean, that theory was wrong for the outcome, but not for the science, so maybe Matt was onto something. In a 10666 custom night. In the good old days where all we figured was that we were a criminal stuck in purgatory, we thought that all the secrets of FNAF could be unlocked using the game's custom night, where you'd set the characters to specific levels and see if you could make it through. However, one such suggestion, the 666 suggestion, was not in fact the case. By setting the latter 3 animatronics to level 6, it was rumored that the kitchen camera would be unlocked, and you'd have audio as well as visual this time around. But that turned out to simply just not be the case, because, well, if you look at the game files, there is no visual for the kitchen cam, meaning that no matter what, unless you added a version of it yourself, there would be no way to unlock that camera. And this wasn't the only time we'd end up getting trolled by FNAF 1's custom night, but more on that a whole kerfuffle later on. Fun fact, kerfuffle was what I named my first Club Penguin puffle. And at 9, Fazland. Way back in the day, a fake Twitter Scott Cawthon ended up releasing images about a new Fazland amusement park that was supposedly in the works around the time that FNAF 3 was coming out or being announced, or it was supposed to be the location of FNAF 3, one of those. However, this was obviously a hoax, and we never ended up getting a Fazbear Entertainment amusement park in real life or in a game, which, looking at the events of Security Breach, is probably a good thing, in all honesty. I think that this whole Fazland thing might have also been the inspiration behind the abandoned fan game Sinister Turmoil, or at least indirect inspiration, since that game was planned on taking place in a Fazbear themed amusement park as far as I can tell from the trailer. And I mean, we've also made videos about the subject, with our series about a real pizzeria, and then like the top 10 attractions we'd want to see at the FNAF amusement park.
Those were fun. That one was Amanda's idea, actually. But either way, it's certainly something that was believable then, and honestly, still believable now. But if it gets announced again, I'm gonna be taking it with a grain of salt. In at 8, Chrome Freddy. A YouTuber named Jimpathy posted a video called FNAF 3 Chrome Freddy Animatronic Easter Egg, Secret Five Nights at Freddy 3's Easter Egg. That's a great title. The YouTuber found a mysterious animatronic called Chrome Freddy. The color of the animatronic is silver, gold, copper with like a darkish green, lime green, just green. And it has black eyes with white glowing pupils. Sure, it does look real, but there was 3 things that made this Chrome Freddy fake. Number 1, there was no light. Number 2, it had no shadow, and 3, it's endoskeleton. The endoskeleton had no black like tube pipes on it, and it was really the original Freddy Fazbear model from FNAF 1. And it had no endoskeleton jaw in its mouth, while Chrome Freddy did have one, okay? Chrome Freddy was 100% fake. No character exists in the game files for FNAF 3, and the video was just posted as a joke. Jimpathy made the video because he thought it was funny, not because he thought it was real or something like that. It's like the same thing when way back in college I claimed that I had a copy of Elder Scrolls 6 and made a fake game cover and to make a joke video and stuff, okay? It was just for fun, okay? And so is this Chrome Freddy video. I doubt he figured it would blow up as much as it did and that people would think that it's real. It seemed very sarcastic when I was watching it though.
And at 7, Afton possessed. See how I changed the inflection? This time I put the emphasis on Afton instead of possessed. That's because this time around, Afton is the one doing the possessing instead of the one being possessed. Yes, we originally assumed that Vanny was going to be possessed by Glitchtrap, aka William Afton, aka the coded digital version of Afton's consciousness that possessed a VR video game. Yeah, but it definitely wasn't something that could be proven at the time. But after the release of FNAF Security Breach and the discovery of the therapist tapes at the end, we know that this theory was in fact correct. Vanessa did get possessed by Glitchtrap at the end of FNAF VR, and then Afton used her to get back to his old body. However, now it seems that both versions of Afton are kicking around, assuming that the blob didn't destroy Burntrap, something which we also still don't know, and probably won't know until the DLC comes out, or even maybe the next game, or maybe even a book, hell, maybe even the movie. And it's 666 Custom Night. In the good old days where all we figured was that we were a criminal stuck in purgatory, we thought that all the secrets of FNAF could be solved using the game's Custom Night, where you'd set the different characters to specific difficulty levels, and then you'd see if you can make it through. However, one such suggestion, the 666 suggestion, was in fact not the case. By setting the latter 3 animatronics to level 6, it was rumored that the kitchen camera would be unlocked, and then you'd have audio as well as visual for this night. But that turned out to just simply not be the case, because, well, if you look at the game files, there is no visual for the kitchen camera, meaning that no matter what, unless you added a version of it yourself, there would be no way to unlock that camera. And this wasn't the only time we'd end up getting trolled by FNAF 1 Custom Night, since later on the Custom Night having the code would indeed become true. However, that code was 1987, and it would just jump scare you instantly with Golden Freddy, which is literally the worst thing ever. Halfway through into number 5, John Wayne Gacy. Clown Springtrap is Springtrap's 3rd skin in FNAF AR and the 3rd skin to be introduced in the Dark Circus event. In addition to looking like a horrifying clown, he carries around a very large red mallet in his left hand. And considering how clowns are one of the most common fears in the world, with more people in the States being scared of clowns than global warming, or even terrorism, I think putting Clown Springtrap on this list is definitely understandable because, you know, John Wayne Gacy. This man, okay, he's like Harley Quinn, but not cute, and basically still meant to be a reference to John Wayne Gacy, at least as I understand it. John Wayne Gacy being a serial killer who used to do kids shows dressed as either Pogo or Patches the Clown. An inspiration that was assumed but not confirmed seemingly until this skin. It's also worth noting that this skin looks a lot like the supernatural version of John Wayne Gacy's ghost, so I feel like that's where the connection comes from. Plus, you know, a clown killer. In at 4, FNAF Remake. For a while, we'd heard rumors of a FNAF remake. One that would be so utterly terrifying that we would forget all about the horrific implications it would have to the lore. But honestly, it was just that. Theories, rumors, speculation, legend. Until the announcement of the Fazbear Fanverse initiative. In that announcement, we were indeed proven, at least somewhat correct, with the lineup containing FNAF Plus, a reimagining of the first Freddy Fazbear game being created by FizzNom, the creator of A Shadow Over Freddy's, Pork Chop's Adventure, and a major contributor to the original Pop Goes fan game. Originally, FizzNom was creating a remake of FNAF 2, known as Five Nights at Freddy's 2 Open Source, later renamed to another FNAF fan game, Open Source, as practice for learning a new game engine. But since the game wasn't really a transformative remake of the original FNAF 2, Scott Cawthon did take the game down, because it was literally basically just FNAF 2. However, he was intrigued with the project and contacted FizzNom about making a original FNAF 1 remake, which now he is. Getting close to the end to number 3, Sparky the Dog. In the early days of the game's lifespan, someone began to spread rumors about a hidden 6th animatronic named Sparky the Dog. Sure enough, screenshots began to pop up on Tumblr, because you know Tumblr is the most trustworthy. Reportedly, Sparky the one-armed dog was non-violent and would never attack the player, only appearing occasionally in the backstage doorway. However, it was eventually revealed as a hoax by the creators, Tumblr users CodeIbear and Gwen, with all the screenshots obviously being photoshopped. Did you ever actually think that Sparky was real? I didn't even know that this was a thing at the time. At this point, my knowledge of FNAF was limited to what MatPat said, because I was terrified of anything horror related. Even the Eddie Brock becoming Venom scene in Spider-Man 3 was terrifying to little me. To be fair, my parents also wouldn't let me watch anything remotely scary, and as a kid I had a dream that a zombie popped his face up right next to my bed while I was sleeping, and then I ended up punching my side table. But yeah, I don't remember this. But it was a thing, it was a thing. Penultimately, in at number 2, 1987 ending. I feel terrible for the poor sucker who figured this one out first, alright? At the end of every FNAF game, there's a bonus night that gives you more lore clues and more scares, but after beating it, you unlock a 7th night where you can customize the animatronics and give them specific levels to see how hard you can make it through, like I was explaining with the 666 rumor. However, if you were to do this in Five Nights at Freddy's 1, you'd obviously be looking for more clues, trying to figure out what the hell is going on in the first place, which would later become an incredible series of games that were just even more confusing. But if you tried to solve this by being a little bit sneaky and inputting the animatronic levels to be 1987, the year of the infamous bite of 87, you end up getting instantly jump scared by Golden Freddy, which, while hilarious, is still creepy and unexpected, especially since everyone was saying that Scott intended this to be how he found out. So people were putting it in. So Scott updated the game to make it jump scare you with Golden Freddy. I get that Scott wanted to shut the rumors down and stuff, but why couldn't it just have been a normal night? What if someone wanted to use those levels for no reason other than to see if they could actually make it, and then boom, they get spooked by Golden Freddy? It's kind of rude, but also that's probably one of the scariest jump scares if you don't expect it, because I don't know, why wouldn't the game just actually load every other level setting? And finally, in at number 1, the Purple Guy animatronic. The Purple Guy animatronic legend is an urban legend revolving around the 2014 Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Yeah, that's right, because they both came out in 2014. In early 2015, though, a YouTube video surfaced that reportedly showed a hidden animatronic, reported to be the Purple Guy, the main antagonist of the franchise, who would later come to be known as William Afton. The appearance of the purple animatronic was preceded by phone ringing, and then after the phone rang, the purple animatronic briefly flashed on screen, slumped against the wall of the office in a manner similar to Golden Freddy. However, it was soon revealed that the animatronic was simply a photoshopped image of Golden Freddy with a purple color scheme and then Toy Chica's head. And I think that it's pretty obvious that it was photoshopped. I mean, we've used the image in a couple thumbnails, every now and again, but no character actually ever showed up in the game. If there was a Purple Guy animatronic, it wouldn't be reused assets either. Come on, people. I know it was 2015 and a 2014 game, but still, come on.
Number 10, VR fail. So while there are lots of FNAF games that you can play, one of the more popular and challenging ones to stream is FNAF VR Help Wanted. And yet, everyone attempts streaming this game. The problem with streaming any VR games is that the technical difficulties you could be dealing with from your setup can be pretty horrific. One of the most terrifying being not being able to get your sound to work while streaming. Pretty awkward. This takes away from the atmosphere of not just your stream, but much of the game relies on sound, making it almost impossible to play without proper audio. So while it might feel less scary to begin with, after all it's just a technical difficulty, all the unexpected jump scares will likely lead to being more frustrated and horrified in the long run. YouTuber Showgaz experienced this challenge firsthand when trying to stream their playthrough of Help Wanted. Number 9. Missed tapes. A big part of Help Wanted is all the tapes you can collect which help you to piece together the story of Glitch Trap and how this animatronic virus came to be, as well as the dangers of the Help Wanted game itself. However, during the opening sequence of Help Wanted, many experienced gamers and streamers like Darkness have missed out on that first tape, which is on the left side of the conveyor belt as you move along during the intro. Missing out on all of the in-depth story and explanation behind Glitch Trap's character is a scary prospect indeed. It's kind of one of the coolest things about that game. Although I guess even if you don't know Glitch Trap's origins, it still exudes a pretty terrifying presence just by showing up in the room with you. If you look around and, notice it. Number 8. Watch out for Foxy. You might think you know what to expect in Help Wanted because you've played all the games in the franchise, but the FNAF 1 first night in the game isn't playing around. Eddie VR experienced just how ruthless the VR version of the first FNAF game could be when he incurred the wrath of Foxy. If you thought you were usually safe on night 1 in that first game, you'd mostly be right. The mistake that Eddie made was sticking his head out of the control room to physically look down the hall, which you can do in the VR game, but doing this will prompt Foxy to come in and give you a surprise visit. In this case, it prompted Foxy to come run in, jump scaring him before the phone guy's call was even complete. That's a really quick fail on night 1.
Hidden 7 2023 location. In our series of videos about how a real FNAF location could happen, it was capstoned with a video about the secret plan for a FNAF location. Secret plan. Where I proposed that perhaps in 2023 we'd end up getting a real, actual FNAF pizzeria. This was solely based on the idea that FNAF 3 takes place in 2023, or at least currently that's what I still believe until we end up getting proof that it doesn't. However, it's time I come clean. That video was just an idea. It wasn't a theory, there's no actual evidence behind it. I merely suggested it because I'm a pathological liar and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. But really, it wasn't really a theory or something. It's not something that I thought was going to happen, but it was certainly at least technically possible. I seriously still think that a pizzeria that would end up being creepy after 9 p.m. For adults after 9 would be incredibly cool and would make absolute bank. I might have to do that with non-FNAF characters just because that's an awesome idea. And at 6, Tater the Waiter Gator. Tater the Waiter Gator was a fan-made character that was made just for fun. However, the fake Scott that also did the whole fake Fazland thing took the model to Twitter claiming that they were a new animatronic. This guy was a real menace back in the day, holy damn. And while it was indeed a joke, the appearance of an alligator face in the FNAF 3 Happiest Day minigame made people reconsider the canonicity of Tater the Waiter Gator. I love saying that. I love saying that. It's so good. Tater the Waiter Gator. Okay, but the thing is, he isn't and was never canon. And the alligator character got explained away with Montgomery Gator, who luckily is not a waiter. He's a golfer and apparently an assassin. We better get to solve the whole Monty killed Bonnie thing in the FNAF DLC, or so help me, I'm actually going to cry. Okay, I won't cry, but I'll definitely be disappointed in the quality of FNAF DLCs that we get if this isn't a thing. There's a multiplayer mode mod, right? So you might as well add it officially so it isn't absolute garbage, in my opinion, right? Right? Halfway through into number 5, Mrs. Afton death. The story of Mrs. Afton is, if there even is one, is a mystery that we've been debating for ages. A story that hasn't had a slight amount of explanation, okay? No references, no mention of an actual name, nothing. So naturally, there are theories about it. However, these theories have no actual base in-game lore, and instead focus on a FNAF fan-animated music video and stories that are treated as canon and sometimes heavily so, to the point where I've gotten plenty of people getting mad at me in my Instagram DMs. The truth is, we have no idea what happened to Mrs. Afton, currently. We don't even know if there really was a Mrs. Afton, or if it was just a baby mama, or if William ended up having a surrogate so that he could have children on his own. Hell, his kids may just be adopted, like Courtney and Jackson from The Tempest by Julie Cross, which is actually my favorite book, and you should read it. Except FNAF is without the whole time travel thing. In the games, in the books, there's time travel now. But either way, for some reason, I don't know why, but I don't know what video caused this to pick up, but a load of people think that Mrs. Afton died in a car accident. I mean, it's certainly a possibility, but that doesn't mean that it's canon. There are also others that think that William killed her, or that she just left him because she found out what he was into, but then for some reason left his prime demographic with him. Others think that she offed herself, others think that her leaving is the reason he started killing, and others think that she just died in a plane crash. All are equally possible, but nothing is actually canon. In at 4, Real Pizzeria. Before the release of FNAF 4, Scott Cawthon's website was littered with references to the numbers 8 and 7 in the source code. This caused many fans and even dear old MatPat to think that these were references to the year 1987, where the famous frontal lobe bite occurred, and even caused a whole lot of problems when the game was released. However, other fans believed these were coordinates, so after plugging them into Google Maps somehow, which I honestly don't understand how you would have done that, but like, whatever. I tried to put the numbers in and it just didn't work, so I don't know how they got to this, okay? But after putting them into Google Maps, they found the location that it was giving them, and it was an actual real-world pizzeria. Obviously, once this got shared, fans of the franchise started harassing the place trying to get answers. And while it was all one big coincidence, someone might have caught on before. Kathy Blockus reviewed the pizzeria, saying the robots kill people. I saw a robot fox killing a kid in there before. Run for your lives out there. This was 3 weeks before FNAF 4 was actually announced, which is when all the 8s and 7s appeared on the website. So while this is incriminating for the pizzeria, Kathy also left 5 stars on her review, so either they're into some really weird stuff or they're just a fan of the franchise. Hopefully they're a fan.
Number 4, 2020-2020. Many fans of FNAF who are also game streamers that played through the first installment and fell in love felt compelled at the end to do the unimaginable. Go 20-20-20-20 on the custom night. That's playing with all animatronics, Chica, Bonnie, Freddy, and Foxy at level 20. It seemed impossible, but actually quite a few gamers managed to pull it off. What most of them don't let you see is just how long it took them to win. Markiplier, however, was proud of the pain and the rage that he suffered and decided to show off his hard work with a fail compilation video that was edited down from 7 hours of failing. That's right, it took him 7 long hours of trying before he finally beat that all 20 level custom night. The frustration and number of jump scares he had to suffer was real and was quite horrifying. Feel bad for him, that's a long time to be playing FNAF. I'm scared just thinking about it. Number 3, who's left? What would a top 10 gaming list be without some of our own fails, am I right? My co-host Connor has of course also played through some FNAF VR Help Wanted, and he's had his own struggles in that playthrough. In the parts and salvage minigame in Help Wanted, you have to do some maintenance on Bonnie. Now in order to complete this game, you have to follow the instructions carefully. However, due to some confusion over left and right and the interpretation of that direction, Connor found himself continuously jump scared by Bonnie for failing to follow the directions properly. The fail came from when the voice had to remove Bonnie's left eye, keyword there being Bonnie. Connor kept thinking of his own left side as opposed to Bonnie's. Your left, after all, your left, is my right. This is my right hand. The best part actually is when Connor returns to the lobby after his last failed attempt there and is asked by the voice if he is having fun yet. The answer to that question was an emphatic no! I feel you though, Connor. Honestly, I still need to use that L thumb trick where you make a L with your left hand so that I know my left from my right. So I would also probably struggle there as well.
I need to figure this out. I'm going to figure this out, okay? I'm going to figure this out.
I didn't figure it out.
Number 2, bail fail. Have you ever been so scared in a game that you couldn't even proceed? Well, that is what happened to Eddie VR when he tried out the vent repair level in Help Wanted. He was only able to make it through the intro before he had to bail. Funtime Foxy scared him so bad after the lights went out that he immediately left the game. This is the type of fail that only happens in games as terrifying as FNAF, where you become too scared to even play, and especially in VR where everything appears so real. Number 1, FNAF 3. Five Nights at Freddy's 3 threw everyone for a loop. It was such a different game due to the hauntings that you had to deal with. Even experienced gamers struggled trying to figure out how to avoid ventilation errors, how to avoid those haunting jump scares, only to find out that yeah, you can't. It's just a hard game when it comes to dealing with malfunctions at Fazbear's Fright. You had less control over your surroundings and were unavoidably jump scared when the ventilation systems went down, due to the hauntings or hallucinations appearing and attacking you. The benefit is they wouldn't kill you or end your game, but they would make it a lot harder for you to avoid Springtrap, who's the real threat in that game. Most frightening fails in FNAF 3 came from gamers refusing to accept that ventilation errors were just part of the game, fixating on some way to avoid them, which usually resulted in their death at the hands of the game's antagonist, its only antagonist, Springtrap.
Inattention Chica. The problem with this, it's embarrassing because every time I bring up Chica I can't help but make some form of crude joke about her. And not like a stupid joke like Kentucky Fried Chica like I did for Top 10 Tastiest Animatronics and for that thumbnail. Instead, what I did for number 1 of the Tastiest Animatronics list, where I put Toy Chica as number 1 then said it was obvious as to why she was at the top, because she is one. Like, don't get me wrong, okay? I think that it was funny as hell, but that's still kind of embarrassing since, you know, like it's a fictional robot chicken and I make jokes about wanting to sleep with. I don't know any way to put that delicately. Honestly, I mean, like, I made the whole top 10 tastiest animatronics list because I wanted to make that joke at the end about how Toy Chica was the tastiest. For real, that's why I made the list. So I could just say that I wanted to eat Chica. Yeah, embarrassing. That video was made when we only had 90 FNAF videos on the channel though. 300 later, and I cry anytime I hear a nose honk. And at 9, 5 honks at Cali's. And by Cali, I mean California. Since back in 2014 when the first FNAF game came out, Smosh Games did their first FNAF Game Bang, as they were calling it. Game. YouTube game, where they all played a round of the game, and the person who survived the shortest amount of time before getting killed had to put on a werewolf costume and dance around in the street in an attempt to get 5 cars to honk at them, only being able to take the costume off when they did. Now, this would have been more embarrassing if it wasn't Lasercorn who got punished, or maybe now I just think that that would be way too fun, but honestly, I remember this video so fondly, and at the time I thought it was pretty embarrassing. Like, nowadays, I'd probably just do that for fun, and instead of having to be forced to do it because I lost a game, but still, at the time it was pretty rough to watch. Not as rough as some of their other punishments, wrestling and lubricant definitely comes to mind, but these were the good old days of YouTube where people watched Minecraft mod reviews and my music taste was limited to Minecraft parodies. Oh, and when I didn't talk about FNAF for 8 hours a day. And at 8, Manglevent. Eddie VR is one of the most popular VR tubers on YouTube currently, with over 6 million subscribers at the time of recording. He was really put on the map though thanks to his FNAF VR Like a Mexican series, which he also continued with his FNAF Security Breach Like a Mexican series on his second channel, which also used to be his main channel. Long story. Anyway, when starting up his series, he was getting a feel for the game. This involved him popping into some of the mini games, freaking out, and then quitting. And after staking his head outside the office in FNAF 1, thus triggering a Foxy jump scare, he hopped into the Manglevent repair level. Now, his initial reaction was that this doesn't seem too bad, but when the lights go out, he starts freaking out a bit. But when it really got embarrassing, but also hilarious, was when he started the level by flipping the first lever, right? The one that's in front of you that you have to get real close to. And then he went absolutely ballistic when Mango was right there in his face. Of course, he was calling it Mangoes, which made quite a few commenters more than a bit upset, but still. Absolutely hilarious, but I'm sure not for him.
Number 7, Golden Freddy mode. If there is one thing that FNAF has become popular for, it's the custom night modes at the end of each game. While I don't actually find FNAF 2 to be quite as scary as FNAF 1, just my personal opinion, its custom night mode is definitely mega terrifying in comparison. There are just more animatronics for you to deal with, which makes the Golden Freddy custom night with all animatronics and characters set at level 20 feel insane. You honestly never stop, and there are more actions that you have to take to keep all the antagonists of this game at bay. Winding up the music box, wearing your Freddy head, using your flashlight, the vents. There's just so many opportunities for failure here. And yet Foxy seems to be one of the characters still to most watch out for. At least Foxy appears to be YouTuber Ethdo's most common form of demise. Foxy and Mangle, gotta watch out for those guys. Number 6, what am I doing? With FNAF 4, many players struggle to figure out just how exactly to win and what exactly they should be doing at any given time. And that that was just the main game. Every night, X Riot also felt the struggle not just in the main game though, but in the mini game Fun with Plush Trap. It's really important in FNAF when you get instructions for the game to really read those instructions. Unfortunately, he was so horrified from the previous mini game that he was unable to focus on the Fun with Plush Trap objective and how to play Blurb. This caused him to fail out. Too bad. Although to be honest, even if you do manage to read the blurb, this is a mini game that many struggle to succeed on. It's really all about timing. It's just a challenging mini game, and it's one that's pretty easy to fail.
Flashlight, use flashlight to stop Plush Trap on the X. Just wait, I wasn't done reading it. I was fixing my headphones. Oh, that is so nice. That is such a nice little plot twist right there. So we have to keep him off the X for the next 80 seconds? Is that what's going on here? What is this horrible thing?
Number 5. Distraction. One important thing is to continue focusing on the task at hand when it comes to the FNAF games. YouTuber formerly known as What the Hook shared his own compilation video in 2014 of him playing through FNAF 1 and all the fails that he experienced personally. His mistake? Not paying enough attention to all the animatronics. While fixating on the disturbing glitching appearance of Bonnie on the security cam, who does, as he observes, creepily only have one eye showing. It's pretty creepy. Chica manages to sneak into the control room and jump scares him as soon as he lowers his monitor. In fact, he had made me so distracted even I was jump scared by this one. Just a reminder that if you don't want to get jump scared in FNAF, you need to be mindful of all potential threats at all times.
Alright, you're close. Too close for comfort. That's so bothersome. Like, that bothers me. Like, one of his eyes aren't even visible. Looks like it's see-through.
Getting close to the end, and in number 3, the Puppet. The Puppet is one of the most iconic characters ever in the FNAF space. The character that gave life to other animatronics and William Afton's first victim, but also one of the simplest characters to contain. All you need to do in FNAF 2 to avoid the Puppet is keep the music box wound. The game even tells you when it's running out of juice with a flashing icon on your screen, and then even a flashing icon next to the camera that you need to go to wind up the box. So imagine how embarrassing it is to get jump scared by the Puppet when the game gives you a million warnings that you're about to be jump scared. Yeah, pretty embarrassing. And it's even worse in FNAF VR, since thanks to the way that it's set up, you just need to keep your finger on the wind button and then use your other hand to worry about the lights and the Freddy mask. That's it. It's one of the easiest FNAF VR levels because of this. But people still get jump scared by the Puppet. And it's unfortunate really, but still creepy because the way the Puppet walks up to you in FNAF VR. At least like that way you literally see it coming, although at that point you also can't really stop what's happening. It explains how he got there though. He didn't just jump from his room and go around corners.
And finally, in at number 1, left eye. This is definitely not going to help with the whole FNAF King thing. However, it's more of a case of not being the direction king. So back when FNAF VR first came out, I was playing it on the channel a couple of times. Actually, no, this was like 2 years after it first came out. But when I first got it, like I mentioned previously, I was secretly closing my eyes because, again, I'm a little... However, the most embarrassing time for me was when I was trying to do parts and service levels. It starts off with Bonnie, and in becoming the purple guy in FNAF VR, which is a video on the channel that you should check out, the first instructions are to remove Bonnie's left eye. Now, I pulled out the left eye, but I kept getting jump scared, so I figured I was doing it too slow, or too fast, or I was hitting Bonnie instead of just pulling out the eye, so I tried it, and I kept trying, and I tried a lot, each time getting jump scared. And it wasn't until after the video, after I had filmed it and was editing it, that I realized that I was pulling out my left instead of Bonnie's left, which is a really stupid way of putting it, but I guess it makes sense given the series we're talking about here. Yeah, that was a rough one. I loved the comments on that video though. I was red-faced for like a month after this until I finally got my redemption.